Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, everyone. For those of you who are joining us, thank you. I see some are actually watching. This is JH Creative's Filipino Hustle Fridays live series. Thank you for joining us. And even there's going to be a recording. So thanks for those who are watching this recording. I'm super excited about this guest. My next guest is Clyde Diao. This is my 7th episode of several of my episodes of live. So I'm really excited to have Clyde here today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And before we jump right into it, I wanted to mention how Clyde has had an extensive background in advising or economic forecasting, especially in the Florida governor's office. So it's really an honor to have someone like you. We've actually met through, I believe it was the ACT, the Asian Coalition, the festival for the first time. Someone introduced us, and we've bumped into each other and just kind of kept in touch on and off.
Yeah, that's right.
I think what was interesting for me, because Tallahassee has a very small Filipino community, so it was a big deal. Like, oh, a Filipino, it was awesome. It was awesome to meet you and just get to see a nice friendly face. There's not a lot. I think a lot of Filipinos are, hi, thanks for joining us. There's a lot of Filipinos are actually working night shift as nurses and things like that. It's just like I rarely bump into other Filipinos. I grew up in Daly City, California, so I'm used to bumping into Filipinos more often there.
Yeah, there's actually more Filipinos coming because there's a very high demand for nurses, and that's really the best source for best nurses in the world are
Best
Filipinos.
talent for it. That's
Yeah,
true.
that's why they're all getting all these Filipinos from the Philippines. I'm
Oh,
so proud of what they've done here. You know.
yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, even through COVID,
Yeah.
I so what brought you here? That was the question of questions when I moved to Tallahassee, right? So what brought
Yeah.
you to Tallahassee?
Growing up in the Philippines, I came from Cagayan de Oro, which is one of the major cities in Mindanao, southern part of the country. And I went to Xavier University, which is also Ateneo de Cagayan, and I studied there. And my dad came from here. He got his degree here at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. So that's the kind of influence I have. He got his engineering graduate, what do you call this, degree, over there. So
Wow.
he was always encouraging me to maybe one of these days you should go to the United States and get an education, because education from the U.S. is a premium. It's something that everybody wants to have, like all over the world, not just in the Philippines. But it makes a lot of difference getting a degree here. So I've always worked towards that goal growing up. And from there, I went to Ateneo de Manila to get my MBA. And while I was doing my MBA and still working at the same time, my office in the Philippines, which is the Fertilizers and Pesticides Authority, in fact, like recommended me for a scholarship through the World Bank. So I was able to get that scholarship, and decided to come to Tallahassee. Now the question is, why Tallahassee? Because they were the ones who were really like pursuing me like heavily at the time. And I wanted to just come here and said, that's okay. Gainesville also like pursued me, and University of Miami,
Oh,
and some other universities up north, but Tallahassee was the one that really like pursued me heavily. And I said, okay, I'll go to Tallahassee. And I wanted to get my education here. Then, so that's how it started. I was able to come here and decided to go for my master's in economics at first. Then after getting my master's in economics, I said, well, my dad came here to visit. Said, why don't you go for your PhD? Because he in fact was offered a PhD scholarship at Cornell, but he didn't go. So it was almost like, wow, man. So that's why he wanted me to go for it, and I listened to my dad being a Filipino. I said, okay, say, okay, let me go for my PhD, and I found out later that it was so hard, to get a PhD here. It was very very hard, and I survived, and I was lucky to get my degree and graduated, from Florida State University. So that's how it started. And while I was working, I mean, while I was studying, I was also offered a job actually with the state of Florida, as an economist with the Florida Department of Environmental Regulation. It was, and as a junior economist. So I never, you know, I didn't really take odd jobs in the sense of just like a lot of immigrants, but probably because of my background back home, at the same time my degree. So they offered me a job, and I rose through the ranks. I became the chief economist for the Department of Environmental Protection, and I was involved with running the economics office. There were several economists that were under me, uh, all of them with masters and PhDs, and we were involved with a lot of the environmental regulations that were in fact like implemented for the state of Florida. And I was involved with analyzing, what the effects of these rules are. And there were several economic projects here that we dealt with. One I can say is that Radman Reservoir, which is down in Palatka. It's one of the largest environmental project that was done, but that was stopped in the early 70s when the environmental concerns were in fact at its height. So they stopped that project. So that was one of them. But there were several regulations that I was involved with as the chief economist for the Department of Environmental Protection. So at the time, I was also going to court as expert witness for the state of Florida. So, while at the same time pursuing my PhD, that's what happened. I was pursuing my PhD at the same time. I was working full time.
That's a
Then,
lot of work.
yeah, that was a lot of work. At the same time, raising two kids.
Yeah. I was going to say, you had kids already, didn't you?
Yeah, I had two kids at the time. So raising two kids, working full time, doing my PhD, and my social life was zero. Because every time I take off and do my research, do my dissertation, and finally I finished my dissertation in like a year. It's amazing. I finished my dissertation in a year, and the reason why is because there was a case. It was about electromagnetic field standards that was imposed here in Florida, and that was challenged by Hillsborough County. And the one that they hired to go against me was my major professor from Florida State University, the late Dr. Fred Bell, and I was very close to him, and he was the guy that they hired to go after the department.
Oh,
And
no.
that was challenged. The rule was challenged. They hired an economist, a top-notch economist in the U.S., and I was supposed to like go against my professor. So, and at the time, I was still doing my PhD, my dissertation. I was writing my dissertation. So I had no choice at the time but to really finish my dissertation as soon as possible, so that when we go to court, at least I have that degree. So that really pushed me and drove me to like I
That's
have to
awesome. More
I
motivation.
have to finish this because I'm going against my professor. And we're still very very good friends, but he passed away. And some of the lawyers in our group said, "Oh, there's a conflict of interest here, Clyde. Let's just like try to get him out of the way." And I said, "No, no, no, don't do that thing because he wants to make his money. That's okay. It's okay with me." So that's how I finished my PhD as quickly as I can.
That's
You know,
awesome.
Asian, yeah. But then after that, then I joined I was with the Department of Labor as the lead economist, doing labor economics, particularly about labor market, employment, unemployment, that kind of stuff. but I didn't stay there very long. Then the governor's office had a position that was open. A friend of mine actually called me, said, Clyde, why'd you apply for this? Because I don't think they're like advertising it or what. So I applied, and they hired me there as a senior economist to the governor's office. At the time, it was during the time of Governor Bush, Jeb Bush, you know, and I served under him for 6 years. Basically, what I did was to develop the econometric model for the state of Florida that's being used to forecast the Florida economy, where the economy is going. Talking about forecasting about income, housing, cars and trucks that are being sold, all types of jobs that you can name off, and even tourism. I used to forecast those things, but I developed the model itself that's in fact being used right now to forecast all these variables. Now,
That's
what do
awesome.
we, yeah, what do we need these economic numbers for? This is a forecast for the next 10 years. So we have to forecast every quarter for the next 10 years. So you're talking about 40 data points that we have to forecast. And I did that thing and did that for several years, in fact, and developed this model. And that's the basis, in fact, for our budget. So our budget depends upon the economic forecast for the state of Florida. If the economic forecast is going down based on what's going on in the United States, okay, then we have to cut the budget. If the economic forecast is going up based on what's going on in the US, because we always use the US data, then we can increase the budget. That's how important the thing is, and it's actually mandated by law. The way we do things.
Wow.
And so I did that one, and also I was involved with forecasting demographics. Population. What's the
Right.
population of Florida for the next 15, 20 years? Which, you know, it's important to note that population drives Florida's economy. If the population goes up, most likely the economy expands. You know, and normally we get like around 365,000 people net migration every year. That's the number of people leaving and number of people coming in. So you're talking about a net of 365, like 1,000 people per day. So that's how
Wow.
that's the kind of growth we have. So that growth, in fact, in population affects Florida's economy. That's why the way I do this is that okay, we forecast population, then use that population growth rates to basically as one of the factors in influencing Florida's economy. That's how I modeled the whole thing. So, but it's a very technical job, and I had to do a lot of presentation, and I depend all these forecasts, during the estimating conference. We have that every year, like I think 3 times a year. So that was my job, but at the same time, I got involved with census, and during 2010, Governor Chris appointed me as the governor's liaison for Florida. That was in charge of the census, promoting census. And what I did was found out that in the past they didn't really promote census among the Asian Americans.
Oh,
I contacted all my friends here in Florida, the leaders of the Asian Americans, and say, okay, we need to get involved in this because we need to stand up and be counted.
hmm,
If we're not gonna get counted, then we have an underestimate the number
wow.
of people here.
So
So we
you
need
were instrumental in getting that number
yes,
accurate.
at the time, and at that time, prior to that, our participation rate in Florida was kind of low. It was only like I think 69%, which is below average.
Hmm.
So we were able to raise the thing up to like 75% during my time. But I made sure that Asian Americans were in fact counted. So we had meetings almost every month in Orlando. I was meeting with the Asian American leaders, strategizing how we're gonna like reach out to the Asian Americans, and even not just Asian Americans, but the minorities as a whole. The minorities, including Hispanics, the blacks, and everybody who's like considered minority. So they were well represented and said, okay, this is the strategy we're gonna go. We were able to get like around how much was that? Like probably around $2.8 million from the legislature to do it. And so we implemented that strategy, and in fact, like raised the participation rate of the minorities. I mean, not just the minorities, but overall Florida's participation rate in the 2010 census. I was very proud of the thing. And then a friend of mine brought me to this Filipino association. At first, it took me quite some time to, in fact, join the Big Bend Filipino American Association. That's the name of the only, Filipino American Association here in Tallahassee. I guess he saw some potentials in me that he had some confidence in bringing me along. So that's how I got involved with the Filipino American Association, and we did a lot of things. I was the president of the Big Bend Filipino American Association for 10 years. That's like 5 terms, probably the longest president in that group. And we did a lot of things. Like one, we implemented like a scholarship for the Philippines, Filipino, students who are in the Philippines who are less fortunate in terms of their economic standing. At the same time, kids that have a lot of potential. So we did that thing. We've been doing this for several years now, and it's still there. Then we have, what else did we do? We had like scholarship also in scholarship and grants, educational grants that we implemented for Tallahassee students. It's open to everybody, not just Filipinos. Okay, and then one of the dreams that we have was actually to have a Filipino festival here, which is the Pista Sanayan. And during my time, I said, well, you know what? I think we can do this. So I organized the entire group and said, let's. And everybody was kind of like skeptical about it. They said, can we really do this, Clyde? Can we really do this? And I said, you know what? Why don't we try this one? And I really want to highlight our culture, the Filipino culture in town. And we did it, and now it's been going on for what, 7, 8 years now, or something. So that's like an annual event here in Tallahassee. But when I was the president of the Big Bend Filipino American Association, I thought of like organizing the Asian community as one group because we're like scattered, we're splintered. We have our own events, but we're not really one. We're not really united as one. And that's one thing I've noticed since I've been here for a long time. I said, you know what? Why don't we do it this way? I told everybody. I said, why don't we unite, come up with, like an umbrella association for all the Asian Americans in this town. It's open to everybody. So there was, of course, a big discussion. You know how Filipinos are. It's kind of hard to like, convince so many like intelligent people in that group. And I said, you know what? Let's do it this way. Just give me that mandate to do it. I asked the board, and I will try my best. I'll approach these leaders from different groups, from the Chinese, Japanese, so forth and so on, and see what they think. You know, you have nothing to lose here. I'll present the plan that we have to be united because we have to have a voice in this community as one. Because if we're splintered, nobody's going to care about us. But if we are a big group, especially in numbers, then maybe we can move something or we can do something about it. So that's what I did. They said, "Okay, Clyde, go ahead and do it." So I identified the various leaders of the different groups, from the Indian community to Chinese to Taiwanese to Koreans to Vietnamese to Pakistanis, Indians. I mean, those are the groups, and of course there were other communities here, and in fact, Florida State International group was also involved. You know, and they said they liked the idea. I said, okay, yeah, why do we have like an Asian coalition here? That's great. That's great. And I said, well, how do we promote? So we organize it. We started from scratch. I was very much involved in writing the bylaws of the Asian Coalition of Tallahassee. We'll call it Asian Coalition of Tallahassee because it's really just an umbrella of all these organizations. And that's how the Asian Coalition of Tallahassee actually came about. So a friend of mine, Lucy Ho, who owns this He's been like been here for a long time. One of the pioneers of the Asian communities here.
She owns several restaurants, right?
Yeah, she owns
A
uh,
zoo, I think.
Azul,
Masa.
yeah, and you know,
Yeah.
and I said, why don't we do this thing? And said, why don't we have like a festival? And I said, what? I mean, that's a lot of work. Yeah. I said, that's a lot of work. That's kind of hard. I said, well, you know what? Why don't we start small? And I said, okay, but we don't have the money. I said, well, let's see if we can approach the city. So since I'm very close to the mayor, Mayor Marks, because his wife is also a Filipino American, and Mayor Mark has been a member of the Big Bend Filipino American Association for a long time. So I approached him that idea. I said, okay, why don't you? I said, John, why don't you give me that support and say you're in favor of this? You're in favor of the formation of ACT and all that stuff. I said, okay, I'll do that, Clyde, for you. So that's how we actually started this Asian coalition. And the first thing we did was, okay, how do we highlight our cultures? Because Asians have very, very varied and rich cultures. It's been there even, since time immemorial, even before this country actually came about. So I said, okay. So we organized the first Experience Asia. We call it Experience Asia in a tiny gazebo. It's in that chain of parks, but the end of that, there's a gazebo there because we can't afford anything. And I said, if we get like
What
maybe
year was that?
it's in that chain of parks
Yeah.
in downtown. At the end, there
And
is
this
gazebo, a small
was that
gazebo.
like the 1990s,
That
I'm
was
guessing.
that was in because we started. I think 2004, 2005, somewhere there. That was,
Oh, okay.
so I said, okay, let's do that thing, and we went there because we didn't have the money to pay for the city and all that stuff. He said, you can get this for free. I said, that's good. So I said, if we just go ahead and invite all the members of your group. If we can get like 300 people here in this town, I mean this event, I'd consider that a success. So some people actually prepared food and all that thing, and I was really surprised. There were more than 2,000 people there, and the
Wow.
food was done even before 12 o'clock. And they were so mad because where is the Asian food here? I said, I'm sorry, it's done, it's gone. But that was a very successful event, and because of that, it encouraged us and encouraged me to actually make it a little bit bigger. I said maybe next year we can go to the other side of the park, and we can rent that what do you call this the stage. You know, there's a mobile stage by the city, and but then again we have to raise funds here because that thing costs money. That one, and it's been going on for like 18 years now. It's very very
Yeah. It keeps growing.
Yeah, and I didn't really that was my vision to make it really big, but I didn't expect it to grow so fast. You know, it,
My
it
one of my team members was able to go there and
yeah,
she caught this photo.
this photo was actually done last year. This was in fact at the at Tom Brown's Park.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the and that was the first time in fact that was done in Tom Brown's Park. It's usually like along the um the downtown area. You know,
Yeah. That was one of my first ones to go to.
it's usually there. And I like it there because there's a lot of trees and people can just sit on the grass and
Yeah.
enjoy the show. But the whole idea there was to highlight the Asian cultures. So you've got Indians doing their stuff, you get Japanese doing things, the Chinese would be dancing or whatever. It's all cultural show. What's probably the largest cultural extravaganza in the city.
Yeah.
And at first, it was hard for us to really like do it because we need funding and all the things. But I said, well, maybe in the long run, we will be able to get maybe funding from the city. At first, I didn't really want to get funding from the city because what if they don't like it
Yeah.
and they criticize us? Oh, you're wasting our money or what? Because I've seen that several times, and in some of the events in town, where they're able to like use the city's money to actually do the events. And I said, I don't really want to do that thing so that at least it's our event, and If it fails, then we can only blame ourselves, and they can criticize us. But eventually, the city, in fact, funded it. Now, since it's a city, it was funded. Now it's funded by the city. It's now a city event. That's why
That's great.
it's been going on for like 18 years. I started all these things.
It was a really huge turnout, right, in this last year.
It is it has become very big because we used to get like performers from abroad. Get performers from South Korea, from Japan, from China. I mean, these are people from abroad coming here, and
Wow.
their what do you call this? Their embassies. Some of the people from the consular offices would come here to in fact visit and be part of the event. That was really a big event. That's really a big event. But since I've been out of it now, I mean, somebody's running it, not me anymore. It's because one way or the other, there's
A
always.
little free.
Yeah, yeah. I'm very happy about the fact that it's still there. Things that we started, and now it's part of the city, and I'm not like running it anymore because it takes a lot of your energy to do this. And I did that. I was
Yeah.
chairman. I was the chairman of the Asian Coalition of Tallahassee for 10 years. I did that for 10 years, and there was even a time, Julia, when I was running the Big Bend Filipino American Association as the president, at the same time the chairman of the Asian Coalition Tallahassee.
That's a lot.
That was a lot. It's really a full time. It's a full time job. At the same time, I have my full time job with the governor's office.
Yeah. And those
So
are voluntary,
yeah,
right?
that's
Like,
all volunteer.
yeah.
You're not paying anybody. And
Yeah.
another thing was that because of what we've done, the governor's office has taken notice of the thing. So they asked me to organize to do the celebration of the Asian American Heritage Month at the governor's mansion. So we did that for like I think 4 years with Governor Chris and 1 year with Governor Scott. I would call all the leaders of these various Asian Americans all over Florida. They would come in truckloads here in Tallahassee to attend this event. They all come here from Miami, Orlando, Jacksonville, Pensacola. They all come here to Orlando and celebrate the Asian American Heritage Month at the Capitol. I mean, not the Capitol, but the governor's mansion. So that's
Oh,
how,
really cool.
yeah, that's how a lot of these Asian American leaders actually got to know me because of that. So I did that for 4 years with Governor Chris and 1 year with Governor Scott. So that was cool, and because of that, it actually gives a lot of exposure to the Asian Coalition of Tallahassee here at the same time the Big Bend Filipino American Association. What I did with this organization was actually to use my connections, especially in the government.
Mm-hmm.
I have to have the thing, be able to move things, to get things done, uh, in order to like achieve the objectives that we set for ourselves. So that's that's what I did for the Asian communities here, and I did it for 10 years for the Asian Coalition of Tallahassee and 10 years for the Big Bend Filipino American Association. I gave a lot of my time to them.
That's
So after that,
wonderful.
yeah, so I retired from the governor's office in January the 31st, 2020, 20, 20, yeah, 2020. And that was my last year there. And I decided then to open my own consulting firm. It's called the Regional Economic Consulting Group. My buddy, who was an economist with the legislature for the legislature, Jared Parker, asked me, said, "Can we do this, Clyde?" I said, and he actually talked to me about it like before I left the governor's office. And I said, "Well, you know what? I can do that thing because I used to do consulting before. I did a lot of consulting during my time." And I said, "But you have to wait until I'm out of this office because you can't be like advertising my name there while I'm still with the governor's office. There's a conflict of interest. I can't do that, and I have to sign like some sort of an agreement with the governor's office that I cannot do certain things that limits me because of my knowledge. How this thing actually works." So after after I left the governor's office, that's when I joined, and we formed this group, and it's been we've been getting a lot of traction. One of the first thing that we did was, um, I mean, the hard part is really like starting, and I said, how do we do this thing? So what I did was to actually use my connections, all the people that I know from Belinda Kaiser is really one of the movers here in Florida. He's a very good friend of mine. She's also a Filipino American. She was the first one who actually helped me and said, Clyde, I'm going to introduce you to a lot of people here.
That's awesome.
So she helped me, and I was introduced to Dominic, but I know Dominic Calabro, who's the head of the Tax Watch group here. Um, so we met and talked about it and said, okay. And they said, okay, we have some projects for you. One was the minimum wage. Remember that minimum wage, raising to $15 per hour on a yearly basis,
Right.
raising it by $1 every year. We were the ones. I was the one that they hired actually to analyze the effects of this on the economy. So then from there they said, well, we have this COVID thing. We have this COVID, and a lot of these people are suing, businesses, small businesses, when they get and accusing them of getting COVID in their facilities. Some of them are workers, some of them are customers, so forth and so on. And small business can really like absorb a lot of these costs, especially when the economy is down and cost of litigation is very, very high. So Florida came up, the legislature came up with the bill that basically protects small businesses from lawsuits. So it's called the liability shield. That was the bill that was like that would protect businesses from being sued by either the workers or customers, as long as they follow certain requirements. Then they can't be sued for that thing.
Hmm.
If they violate these requirements, then people can sue them. But anyway, so what happened there was, because of the people that we know and experience with us, like TaxWatch gave us that opportunity. Said, we'll hire you. We can't really like pay a whole lot this time because we don't have the budget for the thing, but we're going to promote your name. See, that's the thing. I said, I like that because we're starting. He said, we need to start somewhere. So we did that analysis. We look at the effects of the economic effect of not having a regulation in Florida. What would be the effect of that on Florida's economy? What would be the effect of that, these lawsuits, to employment, income, so forth and so on. So we came up with a very extensive analysis, and they used that analysis to actually fight this bill in the legislature, and they won. So because of that, our name is out there. So a lot of businesses said, "Who are these guys? These guys are new," but they like that idea, the fact that I worked for the governor for a long time, having that work experience with the governor as a lead economist for the governors of Florida.
Yeah.
Difference. And the other guy with the legislature. So I said, we want to hire these guys because they know the ins and outs of government. We want to hire these guys because they know exactly what the legislature wants because we used to do all this stuff, you know. So that's the advantage that we have. And
Yeah.
then we did that one. Then it's just one after the other. Because once they know you, they start like, calling you. And we have, and the like we also did the Sadowski housing program. The housing program, a certain part of our documentary stamps in Florida actually goes into that low cost housing to support, people who are having a hard time buying homes. It's been going on for a long time. But the problem with that is that there's so much flexibility with that, and the legislature can just move money around. So in 20, I think 2020, the Sadowski housing program, local housing program, only got like $30 million from the legislature out of $460 million. So they only got like 30 million.
Wow.
So the director of this group said, it's an advocacy group said, we want you to do an economic study of this and see what you can do. So we did, and because of the results of the study that we did, they used that again to ask for more money in the legislature. So from 30 million, they were able to get like more than $200 million. I think that was last year. And because of the successes, then it just keeps on rolling. I mean, people
That's great.
on, and then the most recent one was we were involved in one of the largest tax incentive programs for uh, the film industry.
Well, yeah.
500 million. I would say if they spend $500 billion, the film industry wants to get like back 20% of that, which is 100 million. Because what's going on was that we used to have like a tax incentive program here in Florida, but it expired in 2016. Because of its expiration, it becomes very expensive to make a movie here in Florida because there's no support, you know. So a lot of them go to other places, Louisiana, Georgia, and Georgia is number one now.
Yeah.
All the movies that are supposed to be like made here in Florida, they all go to Georgia. They all
That's
get
why I keep hearing they're shooting in Georgia.
Yeah, they all go to Georgia. The Marvel movies that cost a lot of money for Disney, it all goes to Georgia. We're still getting movies here, of course, but these are small ones. These are not the big ones anymore.
Right.
They're not the major production. These are like tiny production. In fact, what they do is that they'd say like there's a movie. I don't know if you've seen that movie Live by Night. It was a very
No, I haven't
movie.
seen it.
It was about Tampa, Ybor City. So the setting is about Tampa. So
Oh.
that wasn't filmed here. That was filmed in Georgia because it costs so much money to film it here because there's no tax incentive.
Yeah.
So then there was another movie. It was about Florida Man. Florida Man about a guy convicted of something down south in Florida. It was supposed to be like Florida setting, right? It looks Florida, but it's not Florida. It was fake Florida. It was filmed in Wilmington, North Carolina. Or some movies would go just like get like a shot of these places here in Florida and produce the whole movie in what do you call this in Georgia. I mean that's basically what's going on. So we've lost a lot of business because of this. So this group actually hired us to look at you know the economic effects of say spending $500 million and getting back at least 20%, which is like what Georgia is actually doing right now, similar to that. So we did that one, and that that was presented in the legislature, but it wasn't heard in the House. So I'm sure it's gonna come back again next year. It's always the case. If they don't get it this year, they'll get it next year or whatever until they get it. But that was one of the biggest tax incentives, probably the biggest tax incentive we ever have, proposed tax incentive in Florida. And because of that, we also got hired by the Independent Colleges and Universities of Florida, ICUF. The ICUF is actually composed of 30 private universities in Florida. University of Miami,
Oh.
Nova, University of Tampa, and all these private universities. There's like 30 of them under the umbrella of the Dependent Colleges and University of Florida. So they hired us to look at the economic contributions of these universities to the entire Florida economy. So we did a project. It took us like 3 months to do it. We did surveys and all that stuff, then came up with results like the uh, the the total effect, in terms of um, the total economic output is about like $16 billion. That's the amount of contributions they have in Florida. Same time, they create more than 100,000 something jobs.
Wow.
So then we have to depend that, of course, to the presidents of this university. But those are the kind of things that we're doing now. Now we have, in just like the first 3 months, we have projects lined up like crazy. I mean, there's several of them. One is
That's wonderful.
One is with the city of Bradenton. One is with the transportation industry here in Florida. The other is just a repetition of the independent colleges and universities, the ICUF projects. They want us to do more. Uh, the others are, I think, a restoration project down south in Palm Beach, where they want to restore a historic hotel, and they're going to spend like $100 million in that hotel. And what is the economic impact of this in the community? So that's one. And we what else? Oh my God, there's one with the Southeast University where they want us to do an economic study
Wow.
institution of the Southeastern University in that local community. Then yesterday I had a meeting with the film industry again. Now the film industry have different groups. We have the Association of the Film Industry that was asking for $20 million support every year for 4 years. So you're talking about $80 million in 4 years. They want us to do the economic, analysis of that,
Neat.
and also we talked to the head of the film entertainment agency here.
Hmm.
We used to work together at the governor's office, and she's the head now of the group. And they want us to do a study on the film industry. So these are two different groups. So we've been very very busy. That's why we're actually planning to expand, and we're going to be hiring two more economists.
Wow.
Do this kind of work. There's a lot of business out there. I didn't realize this until I got into this thing.
Yeah.
Oh my God! But you have to play it right. And the way I did this was, since I know a lot of people, that makes a lot of difference. People
Yes.
who believe in you, people who trust you. They say this guy can do it, and they've been very very helpful. That's why I'm very thankful to them for help.
Yeah.
It's very hard to start something like this because this is a big
Right.
this is a business that you can really advertise.
Right.
You put a billboard or something or what. Who cares about the thing? It's all about whom you know, and people. The product itself sells itself. You have to have
Yes.
a product that people can say, okay, this is a good product. We want to hire these people.
It's
So
you've got the credibility and word of mouth, you
it,
know.
it all boils down to the credibility. And fortunately, having worked for the executive office of the governor as a lead economist for a long time really helped me a lot
Oh
in
yeah.
this. And you get to know a lot of people, and that's how they. And in fact, that's funny because they wanted me to get involved before I left the governor's office. They wanted me to get involved with the 2000, the latest census, 2020 census. I said I can't do that because I have to leave. I'm leaving, and can you stay longer? I said no, I can't. Then, you know, 2 days before I left, they have a big hullabaloo. I mean, a powwow actually with the CEOs in Florida, and all the CEOs from different companies came and we're thinking about how they're going to promote census. They asked me to give a presentation. So I did with the lieutenant governor with me over there. And so the lieutenant governor said, hey, you better ask questions now because, this guy is leaving 2 days from now. I don't know why he's leaving or what, but, better. Well, that's crazy because after I made that presentation, one of those guys, one of the CEOs actually approached me and said, I want you to work for me. And I said, probably not because I need to like retire. I said, right there and there, after the presentation, somebody approached me, can you I want you to work for me, so and so. And I said, probably not. I
Someone
probably,
already beat you to the punch.
I told him, I said, I'll contact you once I'm done because we have other plans. That's when we
Yeah.
formed the economic consulting firm. But I'm really enjoying it. It's very challenging. And everything is, everything is something new. And that's one thing I like about it because it's never boring. I used to like, okay, develop the methodology and how are we going to approach this? What is the issue here? Okay, they want to put $100 million on this, so forth and so on. So we have to look at this. So how are we going to approach it? So you have to develop the methodology itself. That's the one that actually, uh, in fact, encourages me a lot. The challenge itself.
Yeah.
Of course, the money is good. The money is very, very good. I'm not
I was
complaining.
going to ask you though, like, because I guess several economists have their different approach and models, and that's kind of what makes your company unique, right?
Uh-huh.
And also like what you said, you have the ins and outs, you have that perspective, the policies that'll affect the economy and things like that. So it is important that people get to know your group. That's
Yeah.
if anything, obviously it is somewhat of a business to business model. It's consulting group. So, and it's interesting because I work with a Domi station. You might have heard of them. We did a few reports where it had to include economic forecasting. And I think this is something that more businesses are trying to do. They're a nonprofit organization and they have to present how much value they provide to the community, right?
Yeah.
So this really could apply to a lot of different kinds of organizations, nonprofits, institutions, government agencies, right? Like what kinds of organizations can you help?
We can help any kind of organizations because
Like,
the methodology is still going to be the same.
yeah.
The economic methodology and tools that we use are more or less the same. It depends upon what we're looking at. Like in the case of the city of Bradenton, they want to develop or sell that piece of property. It's worth like $10 million.
Oh, I
And
see.
they want to put like multi what do you call this? Either commercial. They're looking at doing it as a commercial thing or a
Mhm.
residential, or allowing
They're
people.
trying to research the
Yeah,
best option. Oh, okay.
they're looking at the best option, or maybe a mix of two, or something like that. So that's then one time we're also involved with this food bank down south. So that's a different thing, because food bank is nonprofit. How do you analyze the economic contributions or effects of a food bank? So you have to develop another, strategy and methodology on how to go about the thing. That's
Yeah.
so now you have the private sector. The private sector has, it's different because the most important thing for them is actually the bottom line, the ROI, the return on investment. So we have to calculate those return on investment using all the tools that we have. But at the same time, because of our long experience with forecasting, economic forecasting, financial forecasting, and even developing econometric models, because that's really where I'm good at, really developing this stuff. Very theoretical and
It's really neat. I mean, I have so many questions I want to ask you and so much to share still. And it's already the time is starting to run out. But one thing to ask regarding that, so companies like Amazon, when they want to look at properties and locations, like for example, you know how we have Amazon here now, they're almost done building that facility just around our neighborhood.
yeah,
So if they want to invest and develop a team or build locations in cities like Tallahassee, they would rely on consultants like you, right, to see, how much of an economic impact they'll provide, or is it worthwhile of an investment, that kind of thing, right?
yeah, we do that thing. That's basically what we do.
Yeah.
A lot of these projects are involved in this thing, and we look at the direct impact. Okay, what's the direct impact? The direct impact is, say, for instance, they invest like $10 million. How does the thing affect uh, the gross domestic product for Florida? How does that affect employment? How does that affect income? How does that affect the tax revenues for the state as well as the local government? Okay. Then aside from that, we look at the indirect impact. The indirect impact are basically like the supporting industries that in fact support that particular industry. Like for instance, for Publix, they sell bread, right? They bake bread, but they need those ingredients from other industries to supply
Right.
them. So how does the thing affect those industries that in fact supply the raw materials? Then we have the induced effects, which is like, okay, sorry, it's the allergy here.
Yeah, it's bad here in Tallahassee.
Yeah, I say, okay, well, how does this thing affect the induced effects? You look at the salaries and wages and increase in income that in fact you give to people that are, in your what do you call this? Your
It's like
workers,
secondary jobs,
the
or
workers of the suppliers of those raw materials,
right.
spend it in the economy. So the economy expands. That will have a major economic impact. So those are the three things that we look at.
Yeah,
With
that's great.
this stuff. It's the same thing with. I'm sure. Amazon does that thing. That, So sorry. So
Yeah.
one of the things that we want to concentrate on also is economic development, because Florida is growing so fast right now. There's a lot of things going on in every community here, and we want to be there at the forefront and say, okay, we can offer this kind of service to you. We can do this for you in order to justify, especially maybe the commissioners or the council or whatever, to justify that kind of project. Because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, what you have to do is that, okay, if they say, okay, I want to do this. So if you want to do this, what are the impacts of this? This is good for the community or not? That's why you have to have these numbers. That's why these numbers are very, very important, especially for people that actually make decisions. Same thing
Yeah.
with the legislature. The legislature, you want to know what's going to be the effect of this 5, 10 years down the road. Whatever action they do, what are the effects of this 10 years down the road? And that's what we can do.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
And so when you worked for the governor and when you managed the Asian Coalition and Big Ben, my
Yeah.
Filipino Americans Association, I know you have how many kids now?
I got two.
Okay, so then
Then I got remarried, and I have two more. So
okay, so that yeah, because I remember you mentioned you had like 4.
it's expanded. Yeah, but they're all adults now. They're doing, all of them. I'm so proud. They're doing so well in their own,
They
uh,
all grew up here in Florida.
they're doing very well, and they're independent. They've got their own nice houses and nice
That's
families.
great.
And my daughter is, in fact, like a journalist with the Washington Post.
Oh,
And
wow.
he's also a host there in the podcast. Lectures.
Nice.
Yeah, he does a lot of work. His her
You
husband.
should have her interview with me next.
You should. And her husband is also like, he just won the Pulitzer Award like last year.
Really?
Yeah, he's the war correspondent with the NPR,
Oh, wow.
National Public Radio. So he's
Is he Filipino American too?
he's American. He's a white dude from New Hampshire, but he just arrived from Ukraine. He went to
Oh,
Ukraine.
he went to Ukraine.
Yeah, he was there for several weeks,
Oh my goodness. I'm glad he's back safe.
and he got like COVID over there, so he got stuck.
Oh my goodness.
But
Yeah. Well,
but
and your family's a big martial arts family, isn't it? Like
it's
that's another thing you ran. You didn't even mention that part. Aren't you like a black belt?
yeah, yeah. I'm a 7th degree black belt, which is
Oh my
good
goodness.
there. That's why my belt is like candy color. Belt. I've been doing it since I was when I was a high school student in the Philippines.
Oh,
I
people
love
watch out.
Yeah,
Don't fight with this economist.
yeah, I love it because it keeps me going, and I still do it. In fact, last night, every Thursday, that's when I teach martial arts. There are
Yeah.
several black belts in town and very good martial artists. In fact, one of my students is in Hollywood right now doing martial arts stuff there.
He's a stuntman?
Yeah, one of my students.
That is so cool.
Yeah, and I've produced several students. Some of them are doctors now. Some of them is a secretary or like a secretary of the Department of Economic Opportunity. He was my
Oh,
student.
wow.
You know, that
It
was
is good. Like I've always wanted my kids to they did a little bit just for fun for camps, but yeah, I mean self-defense or any kind of martial arts I think is really great for development.
It is. It's good also for discipline, but it's also good for the body. I mean, I'm doing
Yeah.
it. I'm getting old. Especially when you're getting older, it's a little bit difficult. The body breaks down, but I try to like keep myself in shape as much as I can. That's
Is
basically.
this a band?
Yeah, we have a band too, but these are
You're
my
in a
these are my office mates. From the governor's office. I've invited them to the house, and I wanted to sing karaoke. So we had a party.
Oh, fun.
I am. These are very good people here. I mean, I love them. But we have a band. It's called the at Walden Road or at Walden House.
Oh,
We
nice.
played several. Yeah, I don't know if you've seen that thing, but we played several times in different places here. In fact, we just played like a month ago. We played a big party, and that was a paid gig. And so I sing. I sing a lot. I do all
Okay,
the.
I did not know that about you.
I sing.
You've
So
done all kinds of things.
we do a lot of classic rock and roll. From Earth, Wind and Fire to the Doobie Brothers to we even sung. We even played. We played at FSU several times. The event there.
Okay, I'm gonna have to go to the next show
Yeah.
because I mean you didn't even do this for the Asian festival, I don't think, have you?
We did that for the past 3 years. I've not been like very active in the Asian festival now because some people are running it, and that's good. I'm
Yeah.
happy they're doing it, not me.
But you
But
do shows once in a while.
I go there and just sing and play, with the band. But it's a big band. There's like we have three female singers. It's a multiracial band. That's a good thing about it.
Nice.
But I do all the I do the male singing.
Filipinos are so talented, don't you think? I mean, it's just amazing what our generation has come to, like as far as accomplishments in America.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought you were the first generation to come here, but it sounded like your dad was here already, and
Yeah.
then you followed.
But my dad actually did not stay here.
Yeah.
He went home, because at that time he was married and the kids were there. So
Yeah.
But yeah, the Filipinos are very, very talented. When it comes to music, it's kind of hard to beat these Filipinos. Our standard for music is very, very high. I tell you,
Yeah.
it is very high. We've got a lot of really great singers, and I'm glad that now they're realizing how good these Filipinos are. I mean, look at the Grammy Award. There were probably like 4 Filipino Americans.
Yeah. Olivia Rodrigo.
Yeah, I thought that she was like Latin American or something. I said, what a beautiful lady.
Yeah.
And I found said I was reading through. Said, oh,
She's
her
half.
mother's Filipino.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. And she's already been big in the Disney, channel with High School Musical first, but she blew up with her own songs.
Bruno Mars was, his mother's from Cebu.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
kind of
amazing.
exciting.
And you know what? I also noticed that even in Japan, big time entertainers they have over there, the models, they're all Filipino Japanese. I mean,
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah, in Japan.
I know we're having a little, fan fest here, but like even with Miss Universe, we've Filipinos, I think, have the most wins for Miss Universe.
Well,
or at least nominated up there.
Well, the thing about it, we've won several contests from, Miss International to what have you, to Miss Universe, but it's, I think, the mixture of races, mixture of culture. I mean, we're a melting pot in Asia.
Yes.
Yeah, you've got the Spanish, you get
Chinese,
and the Chinese, what have you. I mean, it's just mixed. That's why we produce very beautiful kids and beautiful people.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really, I think the thing is though, and it's starting to come to light now how talented our culture is. That's one of the reasons why I have a passion to have the show is especially highlighting the ones who have accomplished a lot professionally, like yourself, entrepreneurs, small business owners, those who helped run this part, a good chunk of the small business world in America.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's amazing. But when it comes to entertainment and music and all that stuff, Filipinos are up there. And people, I think, I'm glad that people are realizing now that, oh, these guys are really good. Because one time, I was in a cruise. So, they have karaoke over there. Everybody was singing, so. I said, okay. So I went up there and sang. And the DJ was, I think she must be from Eastern Europe. She asked me, I said, where are you from? He said, originally, I said, I'm from Florida, but originally I came from the Philippines. Oh, yeah, I know. The Filipinos are so good. They're so good with music. They're so good. I said, yeah, I guess
dancing,
so.
yeah. Like Jabberwocky's one.
But I'm glad that they're realizing that, we have Arnel Pineda, who's like the lead singer for the Journey, one of my favorite.
Right. Yeah. He sounds exactly like, I mean, I know Don't Cruise is like, there's a reputation of Filipino bands like performing and doing cover music of famous songs and sounding exactly like them.
Well,
that's true. Like we just do a good replication.
But that's amazing because you talk to some of those people from the Philippines who came from, who directly came from there. I mean, the accent is very clear. I mean, there's hard accent, especially if you come from the southern part of the country. But when they sing, you'll never hear the accent.
It's true.
You realize
it's really true. That's why it's amazing. It's fascinating. Like
so, like the accent is very hard when they speak, but let them sing. That accent is gone.
That's funny. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Clyde. And just so everyone knows, like just for people to be able to follow you. And I mean, of course, there's the Asian Coalition. He's not super involved in there, but he's a big factor of why it exists. I think it's awesome that he was able to unify the Asian community. And then also support him, follow him on LinkedIn, connect with him. They have the Regional Economic Consulting Group. Just go to their website. They do book appointments on there as well. So if you have questions regarding economic forecasting, he's your guy. I just wanted to thank everyone for joining us today. And for those of you who caught this recording, thank you for taking the time. Feel free to send guests and anyone who's interested in being on this show my way, because I want to feature more Filipino Americans, more people who have had influence in America. And I just want to highlight more of your stories. So thanks again, Clyde, for hopping on today. I loved hearing your story.
Thank you so much for having me. Okay, it's a great honor.
Yes, and please make sure you connect me with your daughter. I'd love to feature her story as well.
I will definitely. I will. I will do that thing. I'm sure she would love to appear. She went to Florida State too. One of the few people that got into the Washington Post.
Very cool. That's
normally
awesome.
There are like people from up north from these exclusive schools. From
it's not easy to get in.
It's not easy. It's they normally hire like people from the Ivy League schools.
Yeah.
Got in from here, so I'm very proud of her.
Yeah.
Very proud of what she's doing right now.
Good for her. And I consider that you've already accomplished a success in everything that you've been involved with. And I wish you all the best in what you do forward. I would love to introduce you to my executive director at DOMI. I think it'd be really interesting to see if there's anything that we can do together there with your group.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for catching this show. I'm going to go ahead and end this broadcast.